An additional note for tonight's episode of Glove Up or Shut Up on AngryMarks.com. During the show, we noted that the situation with Jon Jones was very fluid and would change before, during, and after the time we recorded the show. Those fortuitous words turned out to be exactly correct because after we recorded the show, Jon Jones was stripped of the light heavyweight title by UFC and suspended indefinitely. Even though Rumble Johnson has stated he does not want a new opponent for the main event of UFC 187, UFC is moving ahead with plans to have Daniel Cormier fight Rumble Johnson for the vacant light heavyweight title. We will continue to bring you news about this subject as it develops. That is your breaking news update appended to this episode of Glove Up or Shut Up from Peter Harrison and Steve Jewin. Thank you for listening to Glove Up or Shut Up. Now, here's the rest of our program, taped on April 28th, 2015.
Glove Up or Shut Up, right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H., and I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Tonight's topic is Jon Jones. We will also be talking about Jon Jones, and later on in the show, Jon Jones.
There was a show in Montreal, UFC. There are some fight updates. There is some news that happened not Jon Jones related. But the Jon Jones story, I'm getting a headache just thinking about it because it's been everywhere for the past, 2 or 3 days now, and it's not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, the news started breaking on Sunday. Extreme Rules was going on at the time, and people were sending me private messages saying, do I believe any of this stuff out there about Jon Jones on Twitter? I'm like, well, you know what? We don't have first-hand accounts. We don't have any corroboration. Let's just let it unfold. And every time something actually broke, the story kept getting worse.
Now, I saw this story on Twitter when it first broke on Front Row Brian's Twitter, and he was repeating, he got lost in the facts and actually later apologized because certain facts were misstrued. At one point, it was cocaine in the car the cops found. It turns out it wasn't cocaine, but it was marijuana. There are a lot of facts here. This is a very fluid story, and There is still some fluidity to it right now, and it's Tuesday, April, 28th now?
Right, but let's backtrack and tell people what actually did happen that we do know for a fact.
All right, so basically, the nutshell version of the story is Jon Jones was involved in a 3-car collision in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where he's training for his fight against Anthony Rumble Johnson.
And he was driving a rental at the time, a Buick.
From Enterprise, yes. And he hit the car, and the car ahead hit the third car, so that's what it was. Now, the car that he hit, the driver
was a pregnant woman.
25-year-old pregnant woman, and they rushed her to hospital, obviously.
She has a fractured arm.
And a fractured wrist as well.
Yes.
So when the story first broke, and as you said, the pay-per-view was going on, I had a friend over watching the show, and I had one eye on the pay-per-view and one eye on my tablet, and my buddy was saying, what's going on? I'm like, Jon Jones, I'll get back to you. I'm posting on our Facebook page right now. Thanks for checking out our Facebook page, by the way. Everything was very fluid, and when I said there was a pregnant woman, my wife, you could hear her in the background. What happened? What pregnant woman? And I'm like, oh no.
Well, and first it didn't sound as serious as it was because at first, when the first tweets hit, when the first news broke, nobody was talking about anything other than like a fender bender. They were using the term fender bender. It's like, oh, he nicked up somebody's car. He's probably freaked out about it. No big deal. And then it's like, okay, there's a pregnant woman in the car. Okay, that's not so good. He's probably going to get some shit for that. Okay, this pregnant woman has a broken arm. Oh boy, that's a felony. Now he's really in trouble. And then the next report we saw was that an off-duty police officer identified Jones running away from the scene with fistfuls of cash. Like, oh God, how much worse can this story get? And it kept getting worse.
What I heard was, okay, he's in a fender bender, okay. The car he hit was driven by a pregnant woman. Okay, that's not good. She's been rushed to hospital. Okay, that's really not good. Okay, it's just a broken arm, broken wrist. Still bad, but okay. And then, yes, he was running for the hills. Then it was running for the hills, went back to the car, got some cash, and ran back to the hills.
Now,
And
why?
it's like,
Now, okay, Peter, I want to stop you right there because if he ran back to the car to get his cash, why didn't he take the marijuana pipe with him?
my favorite thing is when the cops found the marijuana and the marijuana pipe, they also found identifying John Jones.
They found his paperwork for UFC 187, basically.
Yeah, or his his credentials at the gym or something, but basically saying John Jones. And the first cop on the scene and the second cop were talking, and it's actually in the actual warrant. You can go on everywhere these days has the warrant online now. It takes 2 seconds to look it up. God, I love technology now. In the warrant, it says Cop 1 was asking, how do you know it was John Jones? And Cop 2 says, I watch UFC. I know what John Jones looks like.
Yeah, it's not like he's not a public figure. That's the thing that really blows my mind about the fact that he thought he could run from the car and, like, somehow hide out in the woods, or I don't know what the hell he was thinking. But, like, people are going to recognize you, John. People are going to see you fleeing from the scene, and they know who you are. You are a public figure. You are the UFC light heavyweight champion. You've been on every talk show. People know who you are.
Would have been funnier if they actually had the belt in the car.
No, that would have been even sadder.
Well, not as bad as Tim Sylvia, but with John Jones running back to the car, getting cash, and forgetting the pot and the pipe were in the car. My question is, I know it's wrong to say, but how much cash did he grab? Like, was it all $100 bills or what?
I don't know. The words fistfuls of cash made me think he must have had a lot of money in there, and he was worried that somebody was going to steal it. So I'm assuming it was not a small amount.
When I heard this, and this is my wrestling brain kicking in, when I heard he grabbed the money, my first thought was, how much did he grab? Millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Like,
actually, the first thing I heard was, I know this song's been used in a Geico commercial where the guy is driving a motorcycle and he's made out of money and the money is flying off of him. That's the first thing I heard in my head.
John Jones ran away. Cops show up. They do their police work, of course. Now, when it was reported that, or I guess when the cops figured out that the pregnant woman had a broken arm and a broken wrist, or a fractured arm or a fractured wrist, whatever the case may be.
They upgraded the charges. It was a misdemeanor and they upgraded it to a felony.
And then I guess they tried his cell phone number, no answer.
They tried his lawyer, no answer. His lawyer hadn't talked to him, didn't know where he was.
They get the lawyer, no answer, and then they make arrangements for John Jones to turn himself in. Now, I forget who said this on Twitter. It might have been Front Row Brian. Basically, he's saying, you know, it's going to sound bad, but the best thing John Jones did was run away. I know that sounds bad, Stevie, but if he was around and the cops were there and they administered a drug test, what are the odds it was clean?
That's the other reason I think he probably ran, is because he didn't want a field test. If he was high or stoned or drunk or God knows what, he didn't want any chance of them finding out what state of insobriety he was in. So that's probably, and when you're smoking, and people who smoke can attest to this, you get paranoid if you take too much and you think everybody's out to get you. So if he's already in a state of paranoia and he gets in this accident and his instincts just take over, he's like, I gotta get the hell out of here.
I don't know how long marijuana stays in your system, and he has, in fact, turned himself in.
Diaz.
Oh. We don't know what else might have been in the system. I'm not going to play fantasy poker. I'm not going to say what could have been in his system. But he did make arrangements last night. He did surrender to police at the police station. There was a mugshot.
9 p.m. Eastern, Monday night.
And how long did it take him to post the $2,500 bond?
No time at all. He was out today.
I think he spent less time in the police station than the rehab center he went to.
Da-dum-bum.
Well, it's true.
Well, yeah,
he was in, he posted the bond, he went back. Now, the thing is, let's talk about the main problem here. He does have a title fight next month against Anthony Rumble Johnson. I believe it's in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, MGM Grand, May 23rd.
And which commission is Vegas in?
Well, that would be the Nevada State Athletic Commission.
This is the problem. I'm going to lead you down the path here, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Floyd Money Mayweather he was going to miss out on his fight last year. I think it was domestic violence charges. Right. The commission allowed him to fight. They pushed the hearing back 2 weeks so that Mayweather could fight. Then he got suspended. Then he went to jail, and then he was fine. Does the commission push back any hearing that will allow Jon Jones to fight Rumble Johnson until after the fight and then face the consequences, because we don't know how long this is going to take, because today he was in court and he didn't even enter a plea. The DA has 60 days to decide what to do with this case. 60 days? The fight happens before the 60-day window is closed. So, does the DA let him fight? Does the commission let him fight? And more importantly, does Dana let him fight?
I'm glad you said the last one, because the only thing that I'm going to key on here is the fact that this is a black eye for UFC. And it's
two black eyes. Come on, it's worse.
Let me finish. This is a black eye for UFC because of what he did this past weekend. But this is the second black eye they've gotten from Jones in the last 6 months. And this is the third black eye they've gotten from Jon Jones in the last 3 years. Because as you and I both remember, he got drunk and wrapped his car around a pole. So this guy has a not-so-sterling track record of outside of the ring behavior.
Now, he did, do you remember the good old days when he was out for a jog the day of his fight? I think it was in Jersey.
He foiled an armed robber, yeah. He chased down the robber and tackled him.
So he went from that high to this low.
You shouldn't use the word high with talking about Jon Jones.
Oh.
Seriously, though. The guy's got a problem. And he's got several problems. And 24 hours in and out of a treatment facility does not address his problems. I think this is pretty clear now. This guy needs real help. He needs a long time away, and he may need to be stripped of the title and go to rehab for 6 months or a year to address his real problems.
Now, I'm just going to go back to the court for today, what happened here, and Jones was represented by his lawyer. They went to court for a felony first appearance to determine whether there was probable cause to arrest him. The lawyer did not argue with the judge against probable cause, but asked for the travel restriction to be lifted on the bond. So the judge lifted the travel restriction so he can fly to whatever city he wants, I guess, because of his current employment, I guess is the best way to say it.
Right. As the headline on MMAmania.com says, Jones free to fly the friendly skies.
However, he still has to maintain the other conditions of a bond, meaning he must stay away from alcohol and drugs, refrain from breaking any laws, and remain in contact with his lawyer. So, you're telling me now the police can go over and randomly drug test him as opposed to UFC going over and randomly drug testing?
Well, that is the condition of a bond, is you do everything they ask you to do whenever they ask you to, or they can revoke your bond and your ass goes back to jail.
Now, I made this joke, and you can laugh or you cannot laugh. I don't care. But I said to my wife after this happened, I bet you Dana's tearing the hair out of his head. Oh, wait.
Yeah, what hair?
Exactly. It was like, after I started saying it, I'm like, oh, wait, that's not going to work. Dana White I don't think he's happy about this. I really think that he's in a corner.
How do you think Reebok feels about this?
I think Reebok's the least of his problems right now.
Well, they're certainly not going to want him to be the flagship of their sponsorship.
So, I mean, I look back at the 60 days for the DA to decide what to do. Basically, if the DA decides to move forward, a PR rep for the office told this website that a grand jury hearing will be convened to decide whether or not to issue an indictment. At that point, Jones would have to make a plea. So he hasn't made a plea yet, but if a grand jury is convened, he has to say something.
Right. Well, there's something you haven't mentioned yet, and it bears consideration in this whole thing. Rumble Johnson, his number one contender for the light heavyweight title, has already stated publicly he will not accept a replacement opponent at UFC 187.
I'm taking from it that Anthony Johnson will not fight for anything less than the title in Vegas in May. What if the UFC said, you know what? We're done with Jones for now. He has court. He obviously has a problem. We need to separate ourselves from him right now. He is stripped of the title. There will be a new champion crowned at the end of May. Anthony Rumble Johnson gets the title shot against Daniel Cormier.
Well, people have bandied that theory about, but that ruins at least one, if not two, upcoming shows.
Well, Bader said he wants to fight too, and it's like, Bader, you are not getting a title shot in May.
No way that's happening, and I don't think he's going to be happy with fighting for an interim title or a vacant title. He wants to beat John Jones. He wants to beat the man. He wants to be the man, and you don't be the man unless you beat the man.
But what's to say Jones fights in the UFC in the next year?
I don't think he should.
Well, then why is he the title? Why is Johnson taking this hardline stance? I think if he's a title shot, if they make it for a vacant title, you take the shot.
Honestly, I think Johnson just thinks he would be a huge hero to people who hate John Jones by beating him and taking the title from him. That's assuming he could do it.
Or maybe Johnson's scared of Cormier.
I wouldn't go that far. I don't think, with the punching power that Johnson has, I don't think he fears any man.
Well, that's what they're going to say. I mean, if he turns down a fight versus Cormier for the title because Jones is in jail or in rehab, what's saying Johnson wins the title fight, is the champ, Jones comes back, I never lost that belt, son, you better fight me for it. And then you got the epic match that should have happened in May.
The other problem with this whole idea of a replacement fight is that Cormier already lost. I mean, why does he get to fight for a vacant title or an interim title when he already lost to the current champion?
Well, who else are you going to put in that opportunity? I mean, you're not just going to hand Johnson the title.
No, you're not. But the problem is that because John Jones has been clearing out the division, you don't have a lot of top contenders right now.
Okay, let's look at the top five.
The reason that Johnson was such a good fight for Jones is because he was a guy that came out of World Series fighting with his rocket up his ass, going straight to the top, beat Gustafsson, became the number one contender. You know, they got a perfect guy that had never crossed paths with John Jones before.
All right, but if you look at the top five, Johnson 1, Gustafsson 2, Cormier 3, Rashad 4, Bader 5. But if John Jones is taken out of the equation because he's in rehab or court or jail or whatever, and if you have to make an interim or a vacant title fight, and Johnson's one of those guys that's going to be fighting for that belt, Gustafsson is training for a fight night show, Cormier is fighting Bader, Evans, is Evans injured still? Is he on the mend still?
He's on the mend. And
then Bader's fighting Cormier. So, and then number 6 is Glover. I don't think Glover and Johnson fight for the title.
Well, that'd be a better fight than putting Bader in there.
Well, I'd rather see Glover than Bader, but I still think Johnson and Cormier is your go-to fight.
Oh, well, odds are UFC is going to probably try to make this fight happen. But
we're still waiting for UFC because they could, I mean, at the end of the day, the commission has their say, the UFC has their say. I mean, Jones has to be one of the most apologetic guys on the planet right now. You know, he's going to have to make amends, and you know that, I mean, if the family...
He better pay those hospital bills. He better pay the maternity bills. He better pay every single thing that woman has.
Oh, there's a civil suit just brewing right there.
He needs to kiss her ass and maybe literally do so.
Better dress that kid in Reebok clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, I really feel bad for the woman there. No one's talking about the other car in the incident.
Well, apparently nobody got hurt in the other car, so that's why we're not hearing about it.
It's a very scary situation, and I don't think it's going to get any better in the upcoming days.
Okay, here's the one that I've been talking about with people that really blows my mind, Peter. John Jones has so much money. I mean, he has more money than you and I will probably ever earn in our lifetime combined. Why doesn't he have somebody driving him? Why is he driving a rental Buick? Why does he not have a driver to take him to places if he's going to get high and loaded?
Was he the driver?
Well, there was nobody else in the car with him.
How do we know that?
They didn't say anybody else fled the scene on foot.
I feel like no one's mentioning a driver. I mean, we don't know. Can anybody place him in the driver's seat? Like, unless there's maybe security or a traffic camera that puts Jones in the seat. How do we know that Jones wasn't the passenger and the driver snuck off before anybody saw him?
I sincerely doubt that, because this guy has already wrapped the car around a pole. We just talked about it. This guy gets loaded and drives. That's the problem. That's cheap. At the heart, at the crux of everything wrong right now with John Jones, it's that he's completely reckless and irresponsible with public safety. If he wants to destroy his own life with drugs and alcohol, fine. Go be a fuck up on your own time. I know I said I wasn't going to swear during this show, but that just came out. It had to be said. If you want to be a screw up on your own time, go do it. But he is endangering public safety and hurting people with his behavior. That is what needs to end here. There's absolutely no way it's acceptable for him to get loaded and get behind the wheel of a car. You are a lethal killing machine.
Yeah, no, it's true. It could have been worse. I hate saying that, but can you imagine if it was anything other than pot? I mean, pot's it's not a high-end drug like crystal meth, cocaine. You know what I mean? It's not on that high of a scale. I mean, it could have been worse. I mean, it wasn't alcohol, a DUI, another one. You know, that could have been worse. This is just marijuana, but we don't know what else is in the system because by the time he turned himself over to the police, well, most of that stuff's probably out of the system already.
Well, we know he's completely irresponsible. It doesn't matter at this point whether it's alcohol, cocaine, or marijuana, because you shouldn't be driving when you're intoxicated on any of those things. Hell, you shouldn't be driving if you're taking hydrocodone because you have some sort of pain from training. You know, you can't even drive a car in that condition.
We can say he has to go to court. We can say he has to go to rehab. But the guy's got 3 kids at home, and I'm assuming a wife at this point. But it's one of those things where you gotta feel bad for those 3 kids at home.
Okay, he's got brothers that are athletes, that are NFL, that are married, that have families. Why aren't they talking to him? Why aren't they putting some sense into him?
Well, didn't his mother try to do that at rehab the first time?
Well, she's the one who said he was fine after getting out for a day. You know, 24 hours was enough, according to her. Well, no, it wasn't.
I'm seeing something here from ESPN. Maybe you know this person, Brett Okamoto?
Yeah, he's the one who did the complete write-up on it on Monday when he turned himself in.
He's expecting a decision on Jones by the end of the day.
Well, I'm going to just say keep following AngryMarks.com and MMAmania.com for breaking developments in this story because it will be going on long after we recorded this show. As I told Peter, it doesn't matter when we record this show because this story will have changed by the time we record it, by the time it's done, no matter when we record it because it just keeps going.
And we got one last update before we got to move on to the UFC show in Montreal. Apparently, Lorenzo has flown to New Mexico to talk to John Jones.
Okay, well.
That's significant there, right? You know, that's when Lorenzo makes a house call to your training camp. It's not for a good reason. It's not for a social call.
Honestly, my bottom line on this, and it has been for the last 12 hours, is John Jones is no longer suitable to be the light heavyweight champion.
Yeah, I agree. If my bottom line is this, John Jones, by the end of this week, will not be light heavyweight champion.
I don't think he should anymore. I don't think UFC can continue to let him do these things and just write them off because he's the most dominant light heavyweight champion we've ever had and he's our top draw on pay-per-view. They can't just keep making excuses for this guy. They've got to lay down the law somewhere or else they're enablers. And you don't need that. You don't need the reputation of enabling people who are doing destructive things.
Yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad for everybody involved, really. Do you think
he needs to get control of his life? I can't feel bad about that because he's the one who has created the maelstrom that is circling around him. John Jones needs to take control of his life.
Now you've been covering UFC or mixed martial arts for many years now. Isn't there a bylaw in Champion's contract that if you commit a felony, you're stripped of the title?
Well, I don't know what the actual UFC contract says, but if I compare by, again, extrapolation here to the NFL, there is a moral turpitude clause in almost every NFL player's contract that says if you have some unbecoming action that reflects badly upon your team, we can terminate you at any time.
Terminate? You think they're going to fire him?
I don't know if UFC would fire him. but I don't think he should be champion anymore.
And apparently I misspoke. It's Lorenzo and Dana that's flown to New Mexico, so both of them. I don't know. I think they're going to give him the bad news that he's being stripped of the title. That's what I'm taking from that. If Dana and Lorenzo are paying a visit to Jones, I think they're stripping him of the title. Or the flip side, they're basically telling him we're going to let you fight in May, and then we're going to deal with you after that. I don't know. There's a lot of pieces here that are going to fall within the next 72 hours or so that it's going to have a huge effect on that card.
How many second chances do you give John Jones? We gave you a second chance. We told you to keep your nose clean and stay out of trouble. It's like, it needs to be to that point with UFC. Like, I don't know if they're going to fire him, but how do you keep letting this guy screw up over and over and over again and keep forgiving him?
I'm going to use the projected number one pick for this year's draft, Jameson Winston.
Yeah, the crab legs. Is that where you're going?
And he was suspended for, half a quarter or half a game for that?
Yeah, and he's still backpedaling on that story to this day. Every time he tells the story, it gets rewritten. Now he claims that somebody at Publix gave it to him because he's a football player, and they give football players free things all the time.
And there were other incidents in the past. I'm not going to get into them, but it's not his first brush with the law.
No, he had some allegations of sexual misconduct, among other things. And he was not keeping his nose clean, not by a long shot.
So, at the end of the day, I mean, that's basically what we know as of right now, but it's going to change again and again and again. The bottom line is, does he fight on the card? I don't think so, but with so much money riding on this Vegas, it's one of the biggest shows of the year, the Victoria Day /
Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you. Memorial Day weekend. It's one of the biggest shows of the year. Now, the commission really can't do anything until the court has their say first, and if they're saying 60 days before they can do anything, or they're going to take the 60 days, he can fight beforehand, but then the commission, and it's a mess. It really is just a mess.
John Jones, get your life together.